welcome to Graduate Guru. This session we'll be starting with topic called Introduction to Company Accounts. Now earlier आपने already study किया है that there are different forms of organizations, like पहले सबसे basic होता है proprietorship जहाँ पर एक businessman होता है. Then there is partnership where there are two or more people who are jointly doing a business as partners, and that is a higher level of organization, and so on and so forth. And the highest level of business organization that we have studied is companies. So here also in this topic we are going to first study that company क्या होती है, company के कितनी अलग अलग types है, okay, and we are going to move towards basically company form करने के लिए क्या क्या चीज़ों की ज़रूरत होती है, how a company is different from other business organizations and so on. So first we are just going to introduce what company is. So I will be reading out some definitions which will appear on your screen. So first definition is by Haney, and he says a company is an artificial person created by law with a perpetual succession and a common seal. So if I break down this definition into parts, company is an artificial person. Means जैसे हम individuals हैं, we are called natural persons because we are created by nature, by God. But a company is not created naturally. It doesn't exist by itself. Company को humans create करते हैं, and that is why it is an artificial person. Now why am I calling it a person? क्योंकि in the eyes of law, that is, if I go through legal point of view, company का एक अपना existence होता है. That is, a company is known by its name. It is not known because of the people who have formed it, but it is known by the business that it does. उसका एक अपना existence है. It can file cases against other people, and other people can file cases against the company. Not the shareholders of the company, not the directors of the company, but the company itself. And therefore, it becomes an artificial person created by law. Why am I saying created by law? Because हमारा एक Companies Act है. And under the Companies Act, every company has to get registered. जब तक हम हमारा नाम Companies Act में रजिस्टर नहीं करवाते हैं, तब तक the company does not come into existence. So it is created by law and not by any natural forces. It has a perpetual succession. What do you mean by perpetual succession? Means the company will continue till somebody forcefully or deliberately closes down that company. जब कंपनी के ओनर्स को लगेगा that अब ये कंपनी हमें बंद कर देनी है, maybe they want to do something else, or maybe they are too old to do the business, or maybe the business is not running as it should be running, in that case the company will come to an end. But till that decision is taken, till the closing formalities are finished, the company continues to exist. दूसरे forms of business में क्या होता है, जैसे if I take proprietorship business, अगर एक इंडिविजुअल बिजनेस कर रहा है एंड इफ ही डाइज देन द बिजनेस ऑटोमेटिकली कम्स टू एन एंड. बट इन कंपनीज दैट डज नॉट हैपन. कंपनीज में पहले तो जो ओनर्स होते हैं, दे आर द शेयर होल्डर्स ऑफ द कंपनी. वील कम टू व्हाट इज अ शेयर एंड व्हाट इज अ शेयर होल्डर अ लिटिल लेटर. बट जस्ट फॉर गिविंग यू अ ब्रीफ आइडिया, द ओनर्स हैव ओनरशिप ऑफ द शेयर्स ऑफ द कंपनी. सो मेरे पास जितने शेयर्स होंगे उस कंपनी के, उतना part owner I will become of that company. So when one of the shareholders dies or maybe becomes incapable of looking after his affairs or whatever, the company does not come to an end because ये एक shareholder नहीं है जो company को चला रहा है. There are multiple shareholders. So company will continue to exist even if one of the shareholders leaves the company or is forced to leave the company. So perpetual succession and a common seal. Common seal is like a signature of the company. वो जो कंपनी का स्टैम्प है, दैट इज नथिंग बट इट्स कॉमन सील. सो जैसे हम अगर इफ आई वांट टू गिव सम एक्सेंट और सम agreement I want to make with somebody, how I sign a paper, so वो मेरा individual signature है. My signature proves that yes, I have read that paper, I have agreed to the terms which were there in that paper. वैसे ही company कैसे कोई चीज पे agreement करेगी, या how will it show that yes, it has gone through the details of that particular document when the company seal is put on that document. So this is the definition which was given by Haney, and we've divided it into parts and seen each part of that definition. Now, as I said, there is a Companies Act and every company is formed under that act. If I want to form a company, I will have to go through the procedure listed down in this Companies Act. So definition of company is also given under this Companies Act, and as per the Companies Act, a company means a company formed and registered under that act or under any previous Companies Act. जैसे latest जो हमारा Companies Act है, which we study generally, is 2013. It's the latest Companies Act which is changed, amended and modified over the years. उससे पहले एक जो Companies Act था, that was Companies Act 1956. So if a company was formed under the Companies Act 1956, it is also a company. Any company which was formed under the new Companies Act, that is also a company. So यहाँ पर Companies Act में the definition is very crisp and clear that जो भी company इस act के अंदर या इसके पहले के act के अंदर form हुई है, register हुई है, that becomes a company. Okay? So these are the two main definitions of companies. Now we've already seen most of the characteristics or features of the company in the definition itself. जो हमने Haney का definition read किया, उसमें most of the features have been covered. So just listing down the features again, it is created or incorporated by law. So as I said, all companies are created under law. They are not created by nature. They are created under the Companies Act. It is an artificial person, and as I explained, it can sue and can be sued. What does that mean? That means I can file a case against the company can file a case against me or any other person. It has independent existence. Now this is something different from its members, which I already covered where we saw that it is an artificial person. So उसका company का एक अपना existence होता है. Company can buy property, company can sell property, company can do business. So when I say that ये company business कर रही है, I am not talking about the shareholders, I am not talking about the people who are working in the company. I am talking about the company as if it is a person, and that is why it has an independent existence. Perpetual succession, which I already explained, it will continue to exist. कोई एक या दो शेयर होल्डर्स अगर कंपनी को छोड़ के चले जाते हैं, द कंपनी डज नॉट स्टॉप डूइंग इट्स बिजनेस, इट डज नॉट कम टू एन एंड, कंपनी विल कंटिन्यू. सो डेथ, इंसॉल्वेंसी एटसेट्रा ऑफ द मेंबर्स डज नॉट अफेक्ट इट्स एग्जिस्टेंस. Then it has a common seal which I already explained. It is the signature of the company. So these are our definitions and the features of a company, and now we know that company is a completely different form of organization than the other forms. So let us now distinguish between a partnership firm and a company. So in my distinguish, I have taken up partnership firm and public limited company. Public limited company is a company जिसके shares हम stock exchange पे buy और sell कर सकते हैं. Okay? So let's see. The first point is about formation of the organization. So in public limited company, obviously it is incorporated under the Companies Act. So it is formed under the Companies Act. Companies Act है, उसमें procedure दिया है, कहाँ पर हमें फॉर्म भर के देना है, what formalities, what fees are to be paid, everything is mentioned in the Companies Act. And every company, if you want to form a company, you have to follow that procedure and you have to get yourself registered in the list of companies. Whereas partnership में क्या होता है? Oral or written agreement among the partners. So there is an act which we'll see later, but यहाँ पे basically I don't have to follow much formalities. Any two or more people, they will come together, they will decide that उन्हें साथ में business करना है. They will list down the terms that किसे कितना profit मिलेगा, कौन कितना काम करेगा, if they'll get anything extra like salary and all that. So all the terms are listed down and they sign those terms. So that becomes a partnership agreement, and that is how the partnership is created or formed. Then coming to legal status, public limited company has distinct status separate from its members. So again coming to the same point, it has its own existence. Owners are different and the company is different. So when I am talking about the company, I am not necessarily talking about the shareholders. And when I am talking about a shareholder, I am not necessarily talking about the company. Okay, so they are two different people जो own करते हैं company को. Of course, they have put their money in the company, but that is all. Company itself has its own separate existence. Whereas partnership firm, there is no separate status. The firm and the partners are the same. Now here to give you an example, when I file a case against a company, that is not a case against the shareholders. अगर मुझे किसी shareholder के साथ problem है तो मैं shareholder पे अलग से case file करूंगी, company का case अलग रहेगा. But whenever a case is filed against a partnership firm, automatically that case is against the partners. So this tells us that company is completely different from its owners, जबकि partnership firm and the partners are one and the same. Then the next point is about number of members. कितने members हो सकते हैं एक company में और एक partnership में? So in a public limited company, the minimum number of members is 7. So at least 7 members होने चाहिए, तभी public limited company form हो सकती है. जबकि we know that partnership firm can be formed with at least 2 people. So 2 लोग भी आ गए, then partnership form हो सकती है. But for public limited, you should at least have 7. And what is the maximum number? In public limited, there is no limit. Okay, so I can have thousands and lakhs and crores of members. So bigger the company, more the number of members or owners. But partnership mein, there is a maximum limit and that is 50. You cannot have more than 50 partners in a partnership firm. Then coming to liability. Now this is something which distinguishes a company from all forms of organization. Let me first read the point, then I'll explain. For a company, liability is limited to the unpaid amount on the shares held. So suppose I am a shareholder of a company, okay, and I have say 50 shares of the company. Each share is of 10 rupees. Share का एक value होता है. So in our example, I am saying that the share is of 10 rupees each. So 50 shares into 10, my amount which I have to pay to the company to become the owner is 500. Suppose I have paid only 400. Then my liability is only of 100 rupees. कल को अगर company को कुछ होता है and the company has to repay its debts or repay its loan etc. to the outsiders, मेरा contribution 100 rupees होगा. उससे ज़्यादा I will not pay because I have already paid 400 rupees plus 100, my total amount on the shares will be paid and done with. So my liability is limited only to the extent of the amount which I have not paid on my shares. Suppose मेरे example में मैंने पूरे 500 rupees already pay कर लिए होते. In that case, when the company closes down, I don't have to put in any more money because my liability is already fully paid up. Okay, so this is a very distinct feature of the company. जबकि partnership में क्या होगा? The liability is unlimited, joint and several. Means my personal assets as a partner become the assets of the firm. So suppose partnership firm hai and plus I have my own separate business also. So here I am a partner. Suddenly something goes wrong with the partnership business and it closes down. Now we have to make a payment to the outsiders of say 1 lakh rupees. My personal assets will also be used to make that payment. So मेरा अपना cash और bank balance भी partnership firm के bank balance में जुड़ जाएगा in order to make the payment to the outsiders, and that makes my liability unlimited. There is no limit to my liability. जितना partnership firm को amount चाहिए वो सारा amount can be recovered from my personal business or my personal business assets, etc. Okay, so the liability of partners is unlimited, but the liability of the shareholders of a company is always limited. Coming to the next point about management. Who manages the company? Now whenever we talk about big companies, हम news हमेशा पढ़ते हैं, and generally जब हम news पढ़ते हैं किसी company के बारे में, तो we don't hear about the shareholders. Whom do we hear about? We always hear about the directors of the company. The directors ने ये decide किया, directors ने ये decision लिया, directors ने यहाँ पर invest किया. So the management, that is the running of the company, is looked after by another set of people, and that is called the directors. जबकि partnership firm में what is the status? Partnership firm, it is managed by the partners themselves. So I'll just read the point. The management in the company is by directors who are elected by the members. So ये directors कौन choose करता है? Who will become the director? Who is deciding that? That is decided by the shareholders. So shareholders मिलके meeting करते हैं. In that meeting they decide that who is capable of running the company, and they appoint that person as a director. And in partnership, the management is by the partners. When I am forming a business, partnership business, it is my responsibility to run that business. हम employees appoint करेंगे, but the main decisions are always taken by the partners and not by the employees. जबकि company में decision making power to some extent lies with the directors, even though they may not be the owners of the company. Next point is about transfer of interest. Now when I talk about interest in a business means my ownership in that business. So when I say company, जो हम shares लेते हैं, that makes me the owner of the company. When I talk about partnership, whatever capital or whatever money I have put into the business, that becomes my interest in that partnership. Okay, so here I am talking about transfer of interest. Means मेरा ownership can I transfer to somebody else? Yes, in a company it is easily transferable. Why? Because I have a share. उस share को अगर मैं किसी और को बेच देती हूँ, if I sell it to somebody else, that somebody else becomes the owner instead of me. So I stop being the owner of that company, and now that other person has become the owner. So the transfer of interest in a company is easily transferable, especially in a public limited company. Whereas if I go to partnership, transferable only if all the partners agree. So यहाँ पर हमें पहले partners का permission लेना पड़ेगा that I don't want to continue as a partner, मेरे जगह इसे partner बना दो. Only if all the partners agree to that decision, then I can transfer the ownership from myself to that other person. So it is not easily transferable in a partnership, but in a company it is easily transferable. Lastly, we come to the point of dissolution. Now when I say dissolution means winding up the company, liquidating the company, closing the company. Okay, so let's read the point. In a company that is public limited company, it does not dissolve or does not liquidate or does not close in case of death or insolvency of the members. So कोई भी अगर shareholder है, if the shareholder dies, his shares will be transferred to his son or daughter or his family members or somebody else जिसका उसने नाम will में लिखा है. Even if a person becomes insolvent, what is insolvency? When a person cannot pay off his liabilities, he is called a insolvent or a bankrupt. So, जब एक person insolvent भी हो जाता है, in that case also, his shares will be transferred to somebody else or his shares will be cancelled at the most, but that will not affect the existence of the company. Just because एक या दो shareholders have died or become insolvent or are not capable, to look after themselves, that does not affect the business of the company. But what is the status in the partnership? It dissolves in the event of death or insolvency of the partners. So, एक भी partner, if one of the partners also dies or becomes insolvent, automatically the partnership comes to an end. फिर अगर जो बाकी के partners हैं, they want to continue the business, they again have to form a new partnership. So, these are some points of differences or distinguish between the public limited company and the partnership. Now we go on to see what are the different types of companies. Okay, so पहले types of companies समझने के लिए we have to understand that there is bifurcation. See, one company can be of multiple types. So there are certain heads under which there are types of companies. So again, you'll see each type of company on your screen and I'll explain to you what are the different types. So on the basis of incorporation. So पहले तो हम कैसे divide करेंगे companies को? How they are formed, how they are incorporated, how they are created. So under that we have three types of companies, and which is chartered companies, statutory companies and registered companies. So first I'll explain to you what a chartered company is. A chartered company is established by the royal charter or special permission of the government. So a chartered company is basically one which is formed by a special permission of the government. जैसे जब पहले के ज़माने की हम बात करें, where we had Britishers in India, they used to come out, जैसे हम अभी notice बोलते हैं ना, अगर government को कोई information हमें pass on करना है तो they send a circular or a notice. So वैसे ही उस ज़माने में they used to send a charter. So that charter was like a document which would give the details of giving permission to somebody to do something. So such companies which were formed by such charters, they were known as chartered companies. Of course, now we don't have those chartered companies because now we don't come out with a charter. So now जो government company form करती है वो अलग है. We'll come to that a little later. So here my classic example is East India Company. So East India Company is one of the companies which was formed under a charter. Government ने special permission दिया था इस company को India में business करने के लिए, and that is how it came into effect. Then under the same head we have statutory companies. Now what are statutory companies? They are established by a special act passed by the government. So they are companies, जैसे normal companies है वैसी ही company है, but these companies are specially formed by the government और इन company के rules and regulations एक अलग act में दिए जाते हैं. Example, Reserve Bank of India. Now Reserve Bank of India we know is not a normal bank. It is our central bank of our country. So Reserve Bank form करने के लिए the government has passed a separate act called the RBI Act, Reserve Bank of India Act. उस एक्ट में सारे डिटेल्स दिए हैं that रिजर्व बैंक को कौन चलाएगा, कौन मैनेज करेगा, how it will be managed, who will give the orders for its functioning and etc. etc. We are not going into that details. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this company, to form this company, a special act first is created और फिर उस एक्ट के अंदर ये कंपनी फॉर्म हो जाती है. So ऐसी काफी कंपनीज है जिसके लिए एक अलग से एक्ट बनाया गया है, जैसे यूनिट ट्रस्ट ऑफ इंडिया इज ऑल्सो वन ऑफ सच कंपनीज. सो यहाँ पर एक एक्ट होगा और उस एक्ट के अंदर ये कंपनी होगी. एंड द थर्ड टाइप अंडर दिस क्लासिफिकेशन इज रजिस्टर्ड कंपनीज. नाउ दिस इज नथिंग बट आर नॉर्मल कंपनीज जो कि चार्टर्ड भी नहीं है, स्टैट्यूटरी भी नहीं है. दे आर रजिस्टर्ड अंडर द कंपनीज एक्ट. सो जिसे भी ये कंपनी शुरू करनी है, they have to fill up the required form, do the required formalities, pay the required fees, and then their company is registered as a company under the Companies Act. So it is established by registration with Registrar of Companies under the Companies Act. So this is an authority. Registrar is an authority. He maintains all the records of all the companies in his particular area or jurisdiction. Okay. So to just give you an example, Reliance Industries Limited is one such company. ऐसी बहुत सारी companies है, whichever company which we know as any so and so company limited, that companies are all formed under the Companies Act. So this was about on the basis of incorporation. Now coming to the next classification, we have types of companies on the basis of liability of the members. Now we already saw earlier that company में मैंने जितने shares खरीदे हैं उस पर अगर मैंने कोई amount pay नहीं किया है, then that is my liability. But that is not all. There are different types of companies जहाँ पर liability अलग तरह की होती है. So according to that, there is a classification for the companies, and the first one is company limited by shares. So that is our normal company, जिसमें capital is in the form of shares, and जिसे भी चाहिए वो shares ले सकता है. If it's a public limited company, the shares can be easily bought and sold on the stock exchange. So if I want to become the shareholder of a particular company, I just need to go and buy the shares at the stock exchange. So formed with a fixed amount of share capital divided into a specific number of shares. So any of our companies, again taking the example of Reliance Industries, that would also become a company limited by shares. So there is a total share capital. So bigger the company, bigger the capital, smaller the company, smaller the capital. So suppose एक company है जिसका total capital है 10 lakhs and each share of that company is of 10 rupees. So 10 lakh divided by 10 means उस company में 1 lakh shares है, and that 1 lakh shares can be held by anybody who has purchased those shares. So that is first type of company under the liability classification. Second is company limited by guarantee. Now there are certain types of companies जहाँ पर share capital नहीं होता है. Instead, जिसने ये company form की है, जो promoters है, who are the promoters? They are the people who form a company, who promote a company. So जो भी company को promote करता है, they give a guarantee that हमारी liability इतनी है. That is, if something happens to the company और अगर कोई payment करना पड़े outsiders को और company के पास इतने पैसे नहीं हैं, in that case जिस promoter ने जितना amount कहा है उसको उतना amount लाना पड़ेगा. So suppose there is A, B and C who are the promoters of a company, and A says that in case something goes wrong with the company, I'll bring 5 lakhs, B says 10 lakhs, C says 5 lakhs, so that becomes their liability. So this is a company limited by guarantee and not by shares. So it is formed by specifying the amount of contribution by each member in case of winding up. So they will say that जब भी company close होगी हम इतना amount ला सकेंगे. Okay, so that is limited by guarantee. Then we have under the same classification unlimited company. Now these are again a special category of companies जो regular companies unlimited नहीं हो सकती है. Our regular companies are always the first type, limited by shares. Okay, but unlimited company is when the liability of the members is unlimited, like in a partnership firm. So generally जो छोटी companies होती है जहाँ पर members कम है या it's just a family type of a company, there it is possible that you may have unlimited liability. That is just like partnership मैंने जैसे explain किया, if something goes wrong and we have to close the company and we have to pay off the lenders, the outsiders, creditors, etc. In that case, अगर company के पास इतना पैसा नहीं है, then the owners, that is the people who have formed the company, they will have to bring the amount from their own personal assets. Okay, so that is unlimited company. We don't find those companies very often. Now coming to the third type of classification, and that is on the basis of nationality. Obviously, nationality means किस country को belong करती है company. So there we have two types of companies. One is Indian company and the other is foreign company. So Indian company is obviously formed and registered in India. So under the Companies Act, जो भी companies form होती है, they by default become Indian companies. And foreign company is a company formed outside India, but it has a place of business in India. So any company which belongs, which is actually formed, created, whose shareholders mostly are from abroad, but वो इंडिया में बिजनेस कर रहे हैं, those companies in India will be called foreign companies. Now the next classification is on the basis of membership, and this is a very important classification. Here there are 4 types of companies. So one is private company, public company, government company, and one person company. Now this is a very new concept. One person company ये बहुत ही latest concept है. Okay, it was not existing a few years back. In India at least it was not there. So let us do this one by one. First is private company. Now private company when I say, जब हमने distinguish किया partnership और company का, तो हमने कौन सी company select की थी? We did the distinguish with public limited company. So any company which is not a public limited company becomes a private company. Now what are the features of private company? First is it prohibits invitation to the public to subscribe to its shares and debentures, and also restricts the right to transfer its shares. So these are the main features of a private company, that private company में हम shares stock exchange पे खरीद नहीं सकते, बेच नहीं सकते, and I cannot transfer my shares to anybody easily. Okay, and plus public will not be able to buy the shares and debentures of that company. जो company के owners हैं, जिन्होंने company form की है, सिर्फ वही shares hold करेंगे. Nobody from outside will be allowed to hold the shares of that company. So that's why it's called a private company. Okay, and opposite of that is public company. Shares can be subscribed by the public. So anybody, anyone and everyone can buy the shares of that company, and easily transferable shares. So suppose Mr. A ने shares लिए एक public company के, now today he does not want those shares, he will sell it to Mr. B. Mr. B may sell it to Mr. C and so on. So easily it can be sold. And where do we sell these shares? Mostly at the stock exchange. Then the third type under this classification is government company. Now as the name suggests, obviously government company है, so the shares will be held by the government. But how much? So the government company, there not less than 51% of the paid up capital is held by the government. So at least 51% shares अगर government के हाथ में है, then it becomes a government company, because 51% means what? It is the majority shareholding. So जब majority shares government के पास है, means the government can easily control that company. जो government decision लेगी, वही company को follow करना पड़ेगा, and that is why it becomes a government company. And the last one under this classification, as I told you, a very new concept here is one person company. So form of private company, obviously one person company है, एक ही है जो shareholder है इस company का. So it automatically becomes a private company having only a member whose liability is limited to the capital contributed. So here this one person, he has bought the shares of this company, he has started the company और उसने अपने shares खरीदे हैं उस company में. It's a private company, so he will not sell those shares to anybody else outside to the public. He will only hold those shares. और अगर उस शेयर्स का अमाउंट उसने कंपनी को ऑलरेडी पे नहीं किया है, then that becomes his liability. Otherwise there is no liability on him if he has totally paid the amount. Of course there are a lot of advantages and disadvantages of having this one person company. This is not a part of our scope of syllabus, so I am not going to go into that details. But obviously people say that अगर one person company create कोई करता है, तो there is a likelihood that there may be a fraud. He may form the company, take money from the people, अपना पैसा लगा देगा, shares खरीद लेगा, so उसकी liability खत्म हो गई, and then he may just abscond away. So there is a possibility that people who do business with one person company may be cheated, okay, out of their money. So people don't prefer one-person companies. Next classification is on the basis of control, and there we have holding company and subsidiary company. Now when I say holding and subsidiary, holding is the controlling company, subsidiary is a subordinate company. As the name suggests, subsidiary means chota hai wo, it is lower in position to the holding company. So holding company is a company controlling more than 50% of the share capital of another company. So suppose there are two companies A and B, and company A is having shares in company B and the percentage of their holding is more than 50%, then company A becomes the holding company and company B becomes the subsidiary company. So subsidiary company is a company in which more than 50% shares are held by the holding company. Okay, so one company will be holding and automatically the other company becomes subsidiary. And in this there is a third type of company which is associate company, a company which is significantly influenced by another company but is not a subsidiary company. So जैसे कोई एक company है जो दूसरी company को completely control कर रही है for any reason. So reasons are many, I am not going to discuss them all over here. But one company is controlling the other company, but it is not holding 50% shares in that other company. In that case, it becomes an associate company. So these were all the different types of companies. Now we'll just quickly glance through that what are the steps which we have to take जब हमें company form करनी है, क्या formalities हमें complete करनी होती है. So I'll just quickly go through that. First is that promoters create the idea. So जो भी company form करते हैं, जो जिनके पास ये idea है कि हाँ हमें ये business करना है, ये company form करनी है इस business के लिए, they are called the promoters. So the promoters create the idea and they take all the steps. वो देखते हैं कि क्या formalities है, act के अंदर क्या क्या forms भरने हैं, क्या fees भरनी है, all that is done by the promoters. 6 names are proposed for the company and the application is made to the registrar. So company को नाम ऐसे ही नहीं मिल जाता. So I cannot just call my company anything. First I have to give a list of 6 names that ये 6 नाम है, मुझे इसमें से कोई भी एक नाम approve करके दीजिए. And the registrar of companies, he is called the ROC. He will approve any one name. You have to give a reason why you are choosing that particular name. It should be somewhere related to your business or it should be related to your personal self. In that case, the registrar, if he feels that yes, ये company का नाम सही है, it is not demeaning, it is not derogatory, it is not creating any insult to anybody else, ये सारी चीजें देखने के बाद नाम का approval मिलता है. Then you have to prepare a memorandum and articles of association. You have to get it printed, signed and stamped. These 2 documents are the basis of any company. Memorandum and articles help the company to function. Company वही कर सकती है जो उसकी memorandum और articles में लिखा है. Okay, so these 2 documents are the base of any company. Documents such as memorandum, articles, declaration of compliance, etc., affidavits है, address के details हैं, कौन shares खरीद रहा है उनके details हैं, ये सारे जो documents हैं, they have to be filed with the registrar. So in documents का एक पूरा set बना के you have to submit it to the registrar of companies and only then the registrar of companies gives you a certificate of incorporation. What is certificate of incorporation? It is a document. It's like the birth certificate of the company. That certificate says that company का नाम क्या है, when it was created, and from that date the company comes into existence. Okay. So this was about a brief idea of what a company is and how it is different from others, what are the types of companies, and we've also seen that हमें basic क्या steps लेने पड़ते हैं to form a company. So I wind the session over here. Next session, we'll be discussing about the shares of a company. Thank you.